This is a short video to assist you in collecting your dried urine samples for hormone analysis. You should have received from your healthcare provider a collection kit which will include 5 collection devices, which you can see them here, a requisition card which needs to be filled out completely and may possibly have some payment information on the backside, collection instructions, as well as, for many of you, a requisition form that's a little bit more thorough in terms of the information that it's asking. And for all the information that is requested, please do make sure and complete that entirely and accurately, as a lot of that information affects the interpretation of the results. So complete all the information. So for each sample that you're going to be collecting, it's very important that you fill out entirely the labels that go with those. So you're going to be putting your last name, your first initial, as well as the time of collection, and then which sample you're collecting. So for each sample, you're going to be collecting 1 urine sample on the collection device, which has filter paper on the bottom side of the device, and on the top side is the handle. So you collect this by either urinating directly on it, or if it's more convenient, you can urinate into a clean plastic or paper cup, and then dipping the strip. Following each collection, you're going to want to apply 1 label that has your name and collection time on it, and then that can be used to hang it up, as you can see here, on a towel rack or on a counter edge or whatever's convenient in a place where it's going to be safe until it's dried overnight, and then you can simply peel those stickers off, fold them over the handle, and send those in for analysis. So when you're finished, each one of the urine strips will go back in the bag, plastic Ziploc bag that it came from, and those will all get put in that envelope and sent back along with the requisition card and a requisition form if one of those is included. So when we'll be collecting, so the timing of these samples is specific and important, and we're going to be collecting at dinner time, around bedtime, first thing in the morning, and then 2 hours after waking. So for the first sample, we really begin the collection process around lunchtime, at which point we want to start avoiding large volumes of fluids and all caffeine really anytime after lunch before that dinner collection, so we don't want to be overly hydrated. Around 2 hours prior to your sample collection, you want to empty your bladder, and then over that 2-hour period, restrict your fluids entirely. And this 2-hour window for this sample and for the bedtime sample can be rather approximate. If it's an hour-and-a-half collection, 2.5 hours, somewhere in that window between an hour-and-a-half and 3 hours, but we do want to restrict our fluid volume entirely over that time period where you're waiting to collect. So for this sample, again, we want to put last name, first initial, and then your time for this one maybe, let's say, 5:15 p.m., and this would be your dinner time sample. Next is a bedtime sample. So again, same thing here. We want to avoid large fluid volumes prior to collection. We want to avoid caffeine entirely, and we want to empty the bladder about 2 hours before you're scheduled to go to bed, and then restrict fluids over that time. For this one, again, for every sample, please complete entirely the label. So this one might be, let's say, 11:40 p.m., and that would be a bedtime sample. Next is the first morning sample. So this is to represent the hormones as you're sleeping overnight. So we call it an overnight sample, but it's collected first thing in the morning, immediately after you wake, and we really want to focus on that word immediately. So as soon as you're done sleeping for the day, go ahead and get up and collect this sample. Some of those hormone levels begin to change as soon as you are up and active, and so we don't want to, say, lay around in bed and watch television or something of that sort. Go ahead and get up as soon as you're done sleeping and collect that sample. So this one, again, our name's going to go on it there, and this one might be, let's say, 6 a.m., and that is considered an overnight sample. So the next sample is real specific in terms of the timing. We want this one, the morning sample, to be as close as possible to 2 hours after waking. So you may want to set a timer or something when you collect that first morning sample so that this one is collected as closely as possible to 2 hours after waking. So during these 2 hours, we want to restrict fluids, not entirely, but we want to really control that. So no more than 1 cup of fluid per 100 pounds of body weight. So, a cup of orange juice or something like that is fine, but again, avoid large fluid volumes, and we want to avoid entirely caffeine until after that sample is collected. If you cannot go at 2 hours, go ahead and just drink some fluids and then go as soon as you are able. And again, with this sample, we want to put our name, initial, and then the time. So in this case, it might be 8 a.m., and that is considered your morning sample. So a couple of things to consider. What if you have to urinate during the night? That's fine. That's why we have this extra 5th strip. So let's say you get up at 1 a.m., go ahead and collect that sample, and then go ahead and collect again when you wake up for that first morning sample, just as instructed. But if you urinate a second time during the middle of the night, don't worry about collecting that sample. So again, for this one, we want our name, time, so let's say it's 1:30. That's going to be, of course, a.m. And then this one would also be designated as an overnight sample. So another caveat to be considering, what if you're taking hormones? Now we know those could possibly affect results, so we want to be cautious about how we're doing that. So there are specific instructions on your instruction form that talk about different scenarios and what you need to do. So go ahead and follow those entirely unless your healthcare provider has instructed you differently. One thing that's real important is between that first morning sample and that 2-hour sample, we don't want to be taking any hormones during that time period. Be sure to wash your hands before and after collection and after taking hormones, as again, some of those hormones can interfere with the testing if we get it on the filter paper. So we want to be very careful with the hormones and be sure to not ever actually touch the filter paper with your hands. If you're taking things called glucocorticoids, which would be cortisol, hydrocortisone, prednisone, Cortef, things of this sort, you really want to talk to your healthcare provider to make sure they want you taking those. They may want you to discontinue those while you're testing. You really need to discuss that with them to make sure that decision is made properly. So after collection, you should have either 4 or 5 of these urine collection devices, each in individual bags. You'll have a requisition card, and again, the larger, more comprehensive requisition form may be included as well. So include all of that in the return envelope and send that to the lab, but not until all those samples have had a chance to dry as they're hanging overnight. And then go ahead and mail back the samples as soon as you can, as soon as they're dried and put back into the bags. You can send them back by the regular postal service, or you could also send them by UPS or FedEx or something of that sort if you'd like to expedite or track your sample return. Again, fill out all the information that's requested from you on the paperwork. Some of you may be using the online portal to fill out that questionnaire. If that's the case, go ahead and make sure you fill out all of that entirely, the requisition card and the kit, and then return all of that, and make sure that you report the collection times on the requisition form. Again, if you're using the online portal, you'll have to return to that online portal after collection and put your collection times in. If you're using the online portal, we're going to ask you a series of questions that are very similar to those asked on the paper requisition, so go ahead and just follow through with that. And again, you'll have to return to the online portal and report your collection times, which is just the date, the time, and then there'll be some other questions because we want to know if you're undergoing stress during the collection, as that can affect results, and we want to make sure we interpret that appropriately. Again, if you have a paper requisition, this won't be applicable to you. You simply fill that out with your name and address and all of the information, including the hormones that you're taking down here, and make sure and fill that out entirely. And we want to know if you're taking hormones, not just that you're taking them, but what type of hormone you took, when you took it last, and what delivery method you took it. So if you're taking those intravaginally or as a transdermal or topical cream, we want to know all of that information, because again, that can affect the results and the interpretation of the results. So make sure to fill that out entirely. If you're using the online portal, you'll be getting an email to activate that. You'll set your password, complete the questions, and then again return to that online portal to put your collection times in. So if you have any further questions, feel free to contact your healthcare provider, or you can email us at info@urinehormones.com, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered entirely, and then we look forward to getting your samples in, and we thank you very much for testing with us.